And Ignatius says, you will find God in all things. Diapers on adults? Precisely. Of course, that would necessitate you'd have to get close enough to the adult diaper. And none of us want to. We all look away. We all just hope we can fend it off for as long as possible. And you'll miss a lot of God because God is a mystery. And we avoid the mess, and it's in the mess. It's in the mess that God dwells and has God's being. And if you could have heard this kid, how frustrated he was when he came back. He's like, I go and spend an hour with this woman. She doesn't know I was there. She doesn't remember when I come back. And she says she loves me. That's ridiculous. That's stupid. I love this. I'm intrigued by this. I'm disturbed by this. I went in there to be nice, and she is somehow, I don't know, saving me. Well, could you imagine that? Saved by someone whose intellect couldn't match yours for a second. Maybe it's not all about intellect. So Edna became a significant other to this young man. It's a piece called A Place to Stand, and I just love it. It has a little levity to it. If you've ever gone through a toll booth, you know that your relationship to the person in the booth is not the most intimate that you'll ever have. It's one of life's frequent non-encounters. You hand over some money, you might get change, you drive off. I've been through every one of the 17 toll booths on the Oakland-San Francisco Bay Bridge on thousands of occasions and never had an exchange worth remembering with anybody. Late one morning in 1984, headed for lunch in San Francisco, I drove toward one of the booths. I heard loud rock music. It sounded like a party or a Michael Jackson concert. I looked around, no other cars with their windows open, no sound trucks. I looked into the booth. Inside it, the man was dancing. What are you doing, I asked. He said, I'm having a party. What about the rest of these people? I looked over at the other booths, nothing moving there. They're not invited. I had a dozen other questions for him, but somebody in a big hurry to get somewhere started punching his horn behind me, and I drove off. But I made a note to myself, find this guy again. There's something in his eye that says there's magic in his toll booth. So one of the things that intrigues me so much about this piece is the guy, he's driven the San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge thousands of times, which means he's a person of means, relatively. He's intrigued by the toll booth guy. And he says to himself, there's something about this guy. You know, that's what intrigued people about Jesus, mostly his eyes, I think. And they said, what is it about him? What is it about him? What is it about him? God, what is it about him? David Stonder-Ross says, the fact that you're not yet dead is not sufficient proof that you're alive. That's good. Do you know how many walking corpses there are around here? You know, most suicides take 63 years. They're not all that dramatic. They're just tragic. We just stop engaging. And it's a tragedy. And there's a God that says, wake up! Do you know how much vitality there is to be had here? Oh no, I couldn't because I don't dare. No, stop it. There is so much here tonight in this room that we could engage in. But we're numb and we don't even know it. We're exhausted. We're like, oh, it's so tired. This boy talks so long. It's hot in here. But so what? Come on, people. Let's go. And so the guy with means is interacting with someone who is socioeconomically his junior. And he's like, I like this guy. I'm intrigued with this guy. Jesus ate with all the wrong people, like the toll booth guys. You know what I'm saying? And this guy was going to a meeting in Oakland. And, you know, so the fact that he said, I made a note to myself, I'm going to find this guy again because there's something in his eyes. Months later, I did find him again, still with the loud music, still having a party. Again, I asked, what are you doing? He said, I remember you from the last time. I'm still dancing. I'm having the same party. I said, look, what about the rest of these people? He said, stop, stop. What do these look like to you? He pointed down the row of toll booths. I said, they look like toll booths? He says, no imagination. I said, okay, I give up. What do they look like to you? He said, vertical coffins. There's a poem from Mary Oliver, and the first line reads, listen, listen, are you breathing just a little and calling it a life? Listen! Are you breathing just a little and calling it a life? Yes, I am. Okay, that's not good. That's not sufficient. That's not of God. That's not Ignatian. It's not engaged. And that's not to, like, chastise people. It's just to, like, come on. How many days do you want to live not discovering God in all things, like toll booths, for instance? No imagination. Okay, I give up. What do they look like to you? They look like vertical coffins. What are you talking about? I can prove it. At 8:30 every morning, live people get in. Then they die for 8 hours. At 4:30, like Lazarus from the dead, they reemerge and go home. For 8 hours, brain is on hold, dead on the job, going through the motions. I was amazed. This guy had developed a philosophy, a mythology about his job that I could not help asking the next question. Why is it different for you? You seem to be having a good time. He looked at me. I knew you were going to ask that, he said. I'm going to be a dancer someday. He pointed to the administration building. My bosses are in there, and they're paying for my training. 16 people dead in the job, and the 17th, in precisely the same situation, figures out a way to live. See, that is the Ignatian thing. How can I figure out it? You don't understand. I have boring classes. You don't understand. I've lost my job. You don't understand. I'm taking care of my mom. You don't understand. I really ache to have that significant other that you're sort of making fun of. You don't understand. I can't lose this weight. You don't understand. I do understand. Not the particulars, but that's life. That's it. And in the midst of all that, we're invited to find God. Like in the, can you imagine going to a least likely place? I think I'll go in a phone booth and just like really connect with the Lord. Oh, that'd be good. Like a phone booth. We feel like we have to go, like I think we'll go to the Grand Canyon, maybe it'll hit me. Just go to the phone booth. Phone booth is fine. The man was having a party where you and I would probably not last 3 days, the boredom. He and I did have lunch later. I love that this guy had lunch. Can you, like, not many of us would stop when we would go like, oh, it'd be nice to have lunch. We would never have lunch. At some point, he's driving through in his Audi. He's like, would you like to have lunch? And the guy probably like, yeah, I can go right now. And he went and had lunch. I love that. That is, if you want to understand Jesus, he said, do you want to have lunch all the time? I mean, read the Gospels. I'll pay you $500. Find one place in the Gospels where it gives the impression Jesus is busy. Oh, no, I wish I could. I can't. I got lost. The guy is never busy. Always urgent, never busy. What does he do? I mean, basically, he tells stories, has lunch, goes to Jerusalem. Right out of the core. Like, man, the guy just welcomed life. And all the time he said, let you and I have lunch. And lunch is intimate because you got to make a lot of eye contact, then you got to pass the butter, then you got to talk about something. It takes time. You don't really have all that much to do, and so it's intimate. And Jesus wanted to live an intimate life. Most of us are lonely. God desires that we live a life of intimacy. And we think, I can't live a life of intimacy because I'm not living with anybody right now. I want you to be intimate with the people in the phone booth. I mean, appropriately. So they had lunch. We did have lunch later, and he said, I don't understand why anybody would think my job is boring. I have a corner office, glass on all sides. I can see the Golden Gate, San Francisco, Berkeley Hills, half the Western world vacations here, and I just stroll in every day and practice dancing. This guy is living an abundant life. And can you imagine if you were at one of your small group sharing meetings, like, well, what do you do? Hi, I'm the associate so-and-so. I'm the director. And, you sort of want to say something that gets people's attention. You're like, yeah, I'm at St. Pat's. We have curly things on the ceiling. Are you impressed? This guy says, hi, I work in a phone booth. Really? Or a toll booth. Phone booth, toll booth.